Now I'm going to show you how to make these adorable little ears. Start with your main color yarn, and we're going to start with a magic circle. Just drape the yarn across your 4 fingers, use your thumb to stabilize. Wrap the yarn around your 2 middle fingers, hold it in place with your pinky and your thumb. Then take your crochet hook, go under those 2 loops, bring up a loop, make your slip knot. And then you're going to place 6 single crochet into the magic circle, just like we did before. Then we can close up the magic circle. So now I'm not going to place a yarn marker, but you can place a yarn marker if it will help you keep track of the rounds. I'm just going to make 2 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch. So we know that there's a total of 6 stitches in the round. So if you have 6 stitches in the round and you're making 2 rounds, then you need a total of 12. So I'm just going to count to 12. So I'm going to make 1 single crochet in each stitch and then count to 12. So that's 1, 2 single crochet, 3, and then as you're crocheting, make sure that you push the crochet work to form a little cup, and you'll have the loose yarn end in the middle. So far I have 3. 4, and the reason I push it in to form a cup is because it's easier than trying to turn your work inside out. So here's 5, 6. So you can see how I'm pulling on that loose yarn end and I'm keeping it like a cup. So I have 6 more. So I've finished 1 round. Now I'm going to make the second round. I'm just going to keep counting. Here's 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. And then my last one, 12. So you can see how you formed a little tip, and if you need to, you can pull on that loose yarn end in the center to really close up that center of your magic circle. So I just finished 2 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch, so I still have a stitch count of 6. Now we're going to increase the number of stitches in the round. So you're going to get your yarn marker and place it right where you left off. I'm just using one of my scraps of yarn. So now you're going to place 2 single crochet into every stitch around, and that will give you a total of 12 stitches in the round. when you get back to your yarn marker. So go ahead, finish making 2 single crochet stitches into each stitch until you get back to the yarn marker, and that should give you a stitch count of 12 when you're finished. So now this is what my crochet work looks like. You have your tip of the ear, and I went ahead and just tucked in the loose yarn ends into the inside of my ear, and then I'm going to take my yarn marker and move it up to where we left off, and we're going to make another increase round. So for this increase round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then 2 single crochet into the second stitch, and then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, and then 2 single crochet into the second stitch, and repeat that pattern all the way around. So now you should have 18 total stitches in the round. You can go ahead and move your yarn marker up. So now we're not going to make any increase rounds. So we're not going to increase the number of stitches. We're going to maintain the stitch count at 18. And you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around for a total of 3 rounds. So 3 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So after you finish your 3 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch, now we're going to make a decrease round. So we're going to decrease the number of stitches in the round. So go ahead and move your yarn marker up to where you left off. And then for the decrease round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 1 stitch, and then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. So now you should have a total of 12 stitches again after finishing that round. Then just take and move your yarn marker up, and then you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around for 1 round. So only 1 round of 1 single crochet in every stitch around. Then you can go ahead and remove your yarn marker, and then you're just going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. So just go right into that next stitch over, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on your hook. Then you can go ahead and finish off, just yarn over, and then just pull enough yarn through to sew the ear onto the head. And before we do that, you're going to need 2 of these, but I'm going to show you how to make the little triangle that goes in the inside portion of the ear. So go ahead and set this aside for now, and then you're just going to get your Magnolia Way colored yarn, and then you're just going to take and fold it over on itself to form a loop, and then take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and thumb. Then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down, and then cinch the loop around your crochet hook. Now you're going to make a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then after you finish your chain of 6, you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So just count back 1, 2, and then you're going to take your crochet hook, go into that second chain from the hook, bring up a loop, make your single crochet, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch back across. So that's my second. Here's my third, fourth, and fifth. So you should have finished that row with 5 single crochet, because remember we made a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. Then you're just going to turn your work. So just turn your work so you can go back the opposite direction, and then you're going to go into the next stitch over. So you want to go into that next stitch over, and then bring up a loop, and then complete your single crochet. So that's one, and then go into the next stitch for your second single crochet, next stitch for your third, and then next stitch for your fourth. So you'll finish this row with 4 single crochet stitches in the row. Then you're going to turn your work again, and then we're going to go back across. So you're going to go into the next stitch over and make a single crochet. So that will be your first single crochet. Then go into the next stitch for your second single crochet, and then the last stitch for your third single crochet. So you should have finished that row with 3 stitches. Then turn your work again, make a single crochet into the next stitch, and then a single crochet into the last stitch. And now you have 2 stitches for that row. You can see how you're forming a triangle. So now just turn your work, and then you're just going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. So go into the next stitch over, and then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over, and then just pull enough yarn through to sew the triangle onto the ear, the front of the ear. So I usually leave the loose yarn end towards the back of the ear, and then you're going to sew the triangle onto the front portion only. So just take your tapestry needle or darning needle, and I usually go onto the short loose yarn end first. And then you want the bottom portion of the triangle. Make sure that you sew it in the same place as your other one. So you can see that I sewed the bottom portion of the triangle right on that first row of the outer ear. So you want to make sure that you sew the other one similar to how you sewed your other one on. So just take that loose yarn end and bring it, without poking yourself, just bring it into the front portion only. So don't go through the back of the ear. And then just keep that loose yarn end hanging out for now. And then you're just going to take the long loose yarn end that you left for sewing, and then just put that onto your tapestry needle. And then once you have your inner ear positioned where you want it, you're going to take and just sew it in place. And make sure that you don't go through to the back of the ear. You don't want any of the magnolia way colored yarn or beige colored yarn going through towards the back. And then you just go in and out and just sew the inner white or beige portion to the front portion of the ear. Then when you're finished sewing the white portion on, or the beige portion on, you can just tuck the loose yarn ends. After you tie a knot, just tuck the loose yarn ends into the inside of the ear, and then you just need 2 ears. Then go ahead and set your ears aside for now. I'm going to show you how to make the antlers. For the antlers, we're going to be making 3 pieces. And the first piece is approximately 3 inches long. One of the smaller pieces is about 1 inch long, and then a little bit longer one than the smallest one is about 2 inches. So it's almost 2 inches for the second smaller antler. And then you're just going to, after we make them, you're going to be sewing the antlers together to form one antler. So I'm going to show you how to make that. So you're going to get your brown colored, the dark brown colored yarn, and we're going to start with the magic circle, and we're going to start with a slip knot, and then you're going to place 6 single crochet into the magic circle. Now, when you're making your antlers, I like the 6 single crochet size for my antler, but if it's a little bit too small and you have difficulties with the 6 single crochet, you could increase the stitch count to maybe 7 or 8. Just be aware that it's going to make your antler larger. So that's only if you have difficulties with the 6 single crochet. Then just take and close the magic circle, and then you're going to turn your work. And for mine, I didn't use a yarn marker, so what I did was, for the larger antler, you're going to need a total of 12 rounds. So we know that in each round you have a total of 6 stitches. So if you're making 12 rounds, then just multiply 12 times 6, which will give you 72 stitches. So you can just count as you're making your single crochet into each stitch, you can count up to 72. So you go ahead and find your first stitch and then make your single crochet, and then you just count all the way to 72. And then the other thing that you can do is you can just measure it. So I made this first antler, the longest one, about 3 inches, almost 3 inches. So this is my third single crochet. And then as I'm crocheting, I'm going to keep the loose yarn end in the center. So that was my fourth. So you can kind of start forming your cup and then keep the loose yarn end in the center, and you can pull on it if you need to close. And then you just keep counting. So this will be my fifth. And the sixth single crochet. So I finished one round. So I'm just going to keep counting. So the next single crochet will be my seventh. So only one single crochet in each stitch, because you want to maintain this small cup size. And then just make sure you don't miss a stitch as you're crocheting. So this is my eighth single crochet. Ninth. So you just keep on counting all the way up to the stitch count of 72. There's 10. 11. 12. So I just completed my second round. And you can see how I'm forming my cup. And then rather than using a yarn marker, I'm just counting, since I know I'm making a total of 12 rounds with the 6 stitch count in each round, then I'm just counting up to 12 times 6, which is 72. So then the next stitch would be 13. So go ahead, finish your first part of the antler, and then come back. This is 14. And remember, we're going all the way up to 72, or 12 rounds with a 6 stitch count on each round. So this is what my work looks like after I've finished 12 rounds of one single crochet in every stitch around. And again, it measures approximately 3 inches. Each of these little big squares on my board is about an inch. So it's about 3 inches. Then, when you're finished, you just make a slip stitch into the next stitch over, and then just yarn over, and then pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. And then go ahead and finish off. And then just pull enough yarn through to sew the antler on the head. And so for the smaller antlers, you make them the same way. So for this antler, which is the next bigger antler, is about 2 inches. So it's almost 2 inches. And again, it's a magic circle with 6 single crochet. And then this one, I counted up to 42. So that means it had 7 rounds of 6 single crochet in every stitch. And then my third one is the smaller one. And this one measures about 1 inch. So you can see it's about 1 inch. And again, I started with a 6 single crochet. This one I counted up to 24. So that would be 4 rounds with 6 stitches on each round. So go ahead, finish making all 3, and then come back and I'll show you how to sew them together. So after you finish your 3 pieces, we're going to sew them together to form the antler, and the smaller piece will be facing inwards. So you want to make sure that the 2 smaller pieces face each other and the longer piece, the second longest piece, points outwards. So here, so if this were on the reindeer's head, this smaller antler will face towards the other antler. So make sure that with your other antler, the smaller piece faces the smaller piece, just like this. And then the longer piece will go on the bottom and face outward. So the 2 smaller antlers go towards each other, and then the longer antler, the second longer antler, will face outward on your deer's head. So now we're going to sew them together. So I'm going to sew the smaller piece on first. So you just take and place the smaller antler about, if you use the top of your antler as a guide, about 3 rounds down. And then you can take and just sew around the base. I usually go right across to the opposite side. And then I go up into the base of the antler, grab a stitch, and then I'll go right next to the stitch and go through to the opposite side. And then you just sew it in place, and you sew the other antler on the same way, or piece of the antler on the same way. I'm just going to finish this one with you so I can show you how I tie a knot. So this will be my last stitch. Just make sure that I have it sewn on nicely, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. So I just grab a stitch, I'm going to go through twice. And then I'm just going to bury my loose yarn end by going right where I tied the knot and then going down the center of the small antler and then just pulling the loose yarn end through so you can't see it. Then I'm just going to trim the loose yarn end. So go ahead and sew the other antler piece on and then come back. After you sew the antler pieces together, go ahead and set them aside. We're going to take and sew the ears on first. So go ahead and get your tapestry needle and the long end that you left for sewing on the ears, or the same colored yarn as the ear. And then you're going to place the ear and you're going to line up the ear so that there's an imaginary line from the nose past the eye up to the inner portion of the ear. So here you can see there's an imaginary line, and that's how you can line up your ear. And then also line up the ear so you're 3 rounds back from the top of the eye. And then once you have it lined up, then you just take your tapestry needle and then you just sew it in place. So you just go in and out on the back of the ear with your tapestry needle, and then just sew the back portion of the ear in place by going in and out. And then just make sure that the front is still lined up. And then you're just going to go into the bottom stitch of the ear. And again, I'm just making sure I have it lined up in the front. And then I'm just going to take and go in and out along the front and then sew the front portion of the ear in place. And the whole time I'm just making sure that my ear is still lined up where I want it. And then you just sew the other ear on the same way. So make sure that the ears are lined up the way that you want before you secure it in place. And then once you have it sewn in place, I usually tie my knot in the back of the ear. And then I just take and go up right where I tied the knot and into the ear, and then just bury the loose yarn end. And then trim it. So go ahead and sew your other ear on, line it up the same way, make sure that they're symmetrical or look the same on both sides. This is how mine looks after sewing the ears in place. Now you're ready to sew the antlers. So for the antlers, you want to make sure that you have the smaller piece of the antler facing in. And then you just take and sew along the bottom of the antler, and then make sure that you center it between the ears. So I'm just sewing around the base of the antler, and I'm making sure that it's centered between the ears and positioned where I want it. And then I just keep going down into the head. And then up into the antler. And then I want it close to the ear, so I'm making sure that I'm keeping it close to the ear as I sew the bottom in place. So you can see how I'm just going in and out and just keeping the antler close to the ear as I sew it in place. And then I'm just going to tie a knot in the back of the antler. And then I'm going to bury the loose yarn end up into the antler itself. And then you sew the other antler on the same way, and again you want to make sure that the small piece of the antler is facing towards the other small piece of the antler. And then you just take where you've tied your knot, just take and bring the loose yarn end up into the antler, and then you can just trim the loose yarn end, and then you can just kind of open up your antler a little bit, and then you just sew the other antler on the same way. This is how my antlers look after I have them sewed on. Looks really cute. This is what it looks like from the back. Now you can set the head aside and we're going to start on the body. So now I'm going to show you how to make the body panels. So you're going to need a front panel as well as the top panel, and I combined the bottom panel and the two side panels. And I'm going to show you how to make these by making the back panel. So we're going to make the back panel together, and then the rest of these panels are made the same way, except your starting chain will be a little different, and then the number of rows that you make will be different. So first I'm going to give you the measurements for the bottom and the two side panel. So this large panel is 6.5 inches in length, and it's 9.5 inches in width. For the top panel, it's 2.5 inches in length and then 5.5 inches in width. So this is the top panel. The front panel I wanted to make in my Magnolia Way or beige colored yarn, and you can use a white colored yarn too if you want to. So again, this is going to be the front of the body, and this panel is 2.5 inches by 3 inches. So now I'm just going to give you the chain and the number of rows before I show you how to make them with the back panel. So this front panel started with a chain of 15, and then you made 11 rows of one single crochet in every stitch. For the top panel, you start with a chain of 24, and then you make 11 rows of one single crochet in every stitch. Then for your large panel, which is your bottom panel and your two sides, this panel you're going to start with a chain of 41, and then you're going to make 33 rows of one single crochet in every stitch. So for this crochet project, you'll need one skein if you plan on alternating your colors with the beige or the white. So this is one of the body panels. So for one of the deer designs, I used more of the Yosemite colored yarn. So if you do that, if you use more of the Yosemite for the majority of the color for your reindeer, then you're going to need 2 skeins of the Yosemite yarn. But if you use more of the alternate color, whether it be beige or white, then you'll only need 1 skein. So I also, on the feet, I have 2 different styles. I'm going to show. One will be just Yosemite colored yarn, which means that you'll probably need 2 skeins if you're using more of the Yosemite. But you can also use some of your alternate color yarn with the Yosemite to kind of help if you only want to use 1 skein. So now I'm going to show you how to make the back panel. And the back panel is going to be made the exact same way as your front panel, except I'm going to use a different color. So I'm going to start with the main color of my reindeer. And the first thing you're going to do is just take the yarn and then form a loop. And then you're going to take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. And then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down, and then cinch the loop around the crochet hook. Then you're going to make a chain of 15. So just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for one chain. I'm just going to show you 4 of them on video tutorial, but again, you're going to finish a chain of 15. So then yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for your second chain, third, and fourth. So go ahead, finish a chain of 15, and then come back. After you finish your chain of 15, you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So you just count back 2 chains, and then you're going to put your crochet hook into the second chain. And then just bring up a loop, and then you're just going to complete a single crochet. So just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through both loops for a single crochet. And then you're going to go into the next stitch over, and then bring up a loop, and then just make a single crochet. And you're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. So go ahead, finish 1 single crochet in every stitch back across, and then come back. So for beginners, I would recommend counting your stitches, because you want to make sure that you maintain your stitch count as you crochet your panels. That way your panels won't be crooked. So after finishing that first row, you should have a total stitch count of 14. Then you're going to take and make a chain of 1. So just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, go through the loop for your chain 1, then turn your work. That chain 1 counts as your first stitch for the next row. So you're going to go into the next stitch over and make a single crochet. So go ahead and go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop, and then complete your single crochet. And then you're just going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. And then you should still have a stitch count of 14 when you finish your last stitch. Then when you reach the end and you still have a stitch count of 14, go ahead and chain 1 and then turn your work. And so you're just going to keep repeating this until you have a total of 11 rows. So 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch across, and then you chain 1 and turn your work until you've completed a total of 11 rows. Then, after you finish the 11 rows, you can go ahead and finish off. So just yarn over and then just pull enough yarn through to sew the panels together. So go ahead and finish all of your panels that you need. So now we're going to sew the panels together. So the first thing you're going to do is take your large panel, which has your combined bottom panel and the 2 side panels, and lay it so that the right side is facing up. So whatever side that you want showing on the outside of your deer, you're going to have facing up, and then get your tapestry needle or darning needle and get the same colored yarn as the main color of your body. And if you left a long end for sewing like I did, go ahead and put your tapestry needle on that. And then take the top panel And you're going to lay the top panel so that the wrong side is facing up. So whatever side that you want as the wrong side is the side that you'll have facing up. So the right sides of the larger panel and the top panel are facing each other just like this. And then you're going to lay it in the bottom right hand corner. And you're going to take your tapestry needle and you're just going to sew the two panels together. So just take that top stitch and just go in and out and just sew those two panels together with your darning needle or your tapestry needle with the same colored yarn. And then come back. So you're just sewing from this end to the other end, and that's it. And then just come back after that. So then you can see how I tied a knot on the end, and you've created a ridge on the wrong side by sewing those two panel pieces together, so that when you have the right side showing, you don't have a ridge, which is what you want. So now we're going to sew the top panel to the opposite side. So you're just going to pick up the opposite side and then just bring it together so that the ridge that you sew will be on the wrong side, same as your other ridge. And we'll turn the work inside out when we're ready. So you're going to take your tapestry needle and the same colored yarn, and then you're just going to take and sew the two edges together. So I'm going to go ahead and just tie a knot with the two loose yarn ends. And then you're just going to sew it the same way. Just go in and out, sewing the two edges together. So this is what your work should look like. And you still have the wrong side facing you. And then this portion that's open here is going to be where the neck, we're going to crochet the neck. So now you just want to turn it so that the back portion is facing you, the back of the reindeer. And then you're going to get the back panel, which is the same color as the main color for your reindeer. And then take your tapestry needle and then put it on that long end that you left for sewing, or the same colored yarn. And then you're going to line it up. And then I'm just going to tie a knot with the loose yarn end. So make sure that you have the shorter length going up and down, and then the width, the longer width, is going horizontally. And then just tie a knot with your loose yarn ends. And then you're just going to take and line up the back and sew all around the edge of the rectangle, and then secure it to the back of the body. So you're just going to go in and out and just sew the back panel in place. And then come back. So this is what mine looks like after sewing the back panel on. Then I'm just going to turn my work around so that I can work with the front of the body. So on the front of the body, I'm going to take and line up my panel. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the short loose yarn end and just secure it with the top of the front of the body and just tie a knot, securing it. And remember, you want the ridge to be on the wrong side. So make sure you kind of pinch it together so that the ridge is on the wrong side, so that when you turn it inside out, you won't have the ridge on the right side. So I kind of folded the two right sides together. So here's the front panel, here's the right side on the inside of the body. Lay it down, and then you have the panel lined up. Make sure that you have, again, the longer width is horizontal and then the short length is vertical, just like this. And then you're ready to sew the panel in place. Just take your tapestry needle and the same colored yarn, and then you're just going to sew along the side, the bottom, and the other side. So just line up the side and then sew it in place. So you can see how I went up and then back down, and this stitch will be on the wrong side, which is why we're using the same colored yarn as the front panel. That way you're not going to see the stitches on the right side. So then you just kind of open it up and then lay the front panel along the bottom panel, and then you can see how you'll end up sewing along the bottom and then back up the opposite side. So go ahead and sew the front panel in place and then come back. So now you can take and turn your work inside out. So go ahead and turn the body inside out. Whoop, you can see I forgot to sew an edge. So I'm going to go back and finish sewing that one edge. So now I turned my work inside out, and you can see how I have no ridges on the right side. So this is the back panel. Looks great. And then the top panel and the front panel. So now we're going to make the neck, crochet the neck. Now with the front panel facing to the right, go ahead and join your yarn in the corner stitch. So go ahead and tie a knot. Then chain one, and then you're going to make one single crochet in every stitch until you reach the top panel. So one single crochet in every stitch until you reach that corner or the top panel. So one single crochet in every stitch. And then when you reach that top panel, come back and I'll show you what to do next. Now I've reached the top panel. So the side of the top panel is not going to be a one-to-one stitch. You're going to try to space your stitches as evenly as possible across the top panel. But before you get to the top panel, you can see how I have one stitch left before reaching the top panel. So I'm going to single crochet 2 stitches together at this corner. So I'm going to take my crochet hook, I'm going to go into the next stitch on the side. I'm going to bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, then I'm going to go into the first stitch on the top panel. And then I'm going to bring up a loop. And then I'm going to single crochet 2 stitches together. So I have 3 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then bring the yarn through all 3 loops for a single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you're just going to resume making 1 single crochet into every stitch until you reach the next corner where the top panel meets the side, and then come back. So evenly space one single crochet into each of the stitches across the top panel until you get to that corner stitch where the top panel meets the side, and then come back. So now I have one more stitch left before I reach the side panel. I'm going to single crochet 2 stitches together. And then I'm going to resume making 1 single crochet in every stitch until I reach the front panel. So go ahead and finish making 1 single crochet in each of the side panel stitches and then come back. So you can see that I'm right before the front panel. So I'm going to go ahead and single crochet 2 stitches together. And then I'm just going to resume 1 single crochet across the front panel. So 1 single crochet in every stitch across the top of the front panel. Then I'm going to finish my last single crochet stitch, single crochet 2 stitches together, which will bring me back to where I first started. And then you completed your first round. So now you should have a total of 53 stitches in the round. Now if you're off by 1 or 2 stitches, that's fine. And the reason why you would be off is because we were spacing the stitches across the back here. So that may have brought you a stitch or 2 off from mine, but that's okay as long as you're close to that count. Then for the next round, we're going to make a decrease round, which means we're going to decrease the number of stitches in the round. So go ahead and place your yarn marker right where you left off. And then for this decrease round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 5 stitches. And then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together for the decrease stitch. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. So 1 single crochet into 5 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, and repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. So now I have a stitch count of 46. Then just take and move your yarn marker up to where you left off, and now you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around for 4 rounds. So 4 rounds of only 1 single crochet in every stitch around. After you finish your 4 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch, go ahead and move your yarn marker up for a decrease round. And for this decrease round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 4 stitches. And then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together, or make your decrease stitch. And then you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. So 1 single crochet into 4 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, and repeat that pattern all the way back to the yarn marker. And you can go ahead and put some craft stuffing into the body portion as well. So now you can see that I added stuffing inside of the body, and I just finished my last 4 stitches of 1 single crochet into 4 stitches, and that brings me back to my yarn marker. Go ahead and remove your yarn marker, and then go ahead and single crochet 2 stitches together to get ready for your next round. So I finished with 38 stitches on that round. Go ahead and place your yarn marker, and then you're going to make one single crochet in every stitch around for 4 rounds. So 4 rounds of one single crochet in every stitch. So now we're going to place our stitch markers in the back of the neck after you finish your 4 rounds of one single crochet in every stitch. So counting from where you finished off, you're going to count to the 7th stitch and then place your stitch marker in the 7th stitch, and then you're going to count. So that's the 7th stitch. I'm going to count that as 1. The stitch marker is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So then in the 15th stitch, you'll place your 2nd stitch marker. So then you have your 2 stitch markers in place. Then you're going to take and move your yarn marker up to where you left off. And then you're going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. So you're going to go into the next stitch over, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch, and then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over, and then just pull enough yarn through to help sew the head in place when we're ready to position the head. And you can go ahead and remove your yarn marker, and then you're going to take and go to the back of the head. We're going to join the yarn in the 1st stitch marker. So you go into that 1st stitch marker and then bring up your yarn and join the yarn in the back of the neck. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. I'm just going to leave the stitch marker for now. I can just remove it when I'm finished. Then I'm going to make a single crochet into each of the stitches, and then stop in the stitch right before the stitch marker, the 2nd stitch marker. So one single crochet in every stitch all the way to the stitch right before the stitch marker stitch. Then when you reach your 2nd stitch marker, you're going to slip stitch into that stitch, and then just turn your work, and then you're going to go into the next stitch over. So go into that next stitch, and then you're going to bring up a loop and then make a single crochet. If you love my little stitch markers, they're made by Pastiche Accessories. I have the link on my blog at www.helenmaycrochet.com. Just search small handmade businesses. Then you just continue making one single crochet in every stitch back across until you reach the stitch right before the next stitch marker. So now I finished my single crochet right before my stitch marker stitch, and I have a total of 13 stitches so far. I finished my last single crochet. Now I'm going to turn my work. I'm not going to chain 1. I'm just going to turn my work, and then I'm going to make a single crochet into the next stitch, and again I'm going to make one single crochet into each stitch back across. Then you can take and just make a slip stitch into the next stitch, and then just bring the yarn through both loops on the hook to complete the slip stitch, and then just finish off, just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to help sew the head in place. And then you can remove your stitch markers and then go ahead and finish stuffing the neck with craft stuffing.